So I'd like to welcome Mr. Michael Reed. As I mentioned earlier, he's the Acting Director of the Social Planning and Research at the Ministry of Social Development and Family Services. Welcome.
Thank you.
So first of all, what is this Green Paper National Parenting Policy of Trinidad and Tobago? Exactly what is it and what is its objective?
Well, let me go back to the genesis of this. In 2004, a cabinet-appointed committee that was set up to examine the status of the institution of the family found that poor parenting practices was the cause of negative effect among family life in Trinidad and Tobago. Later on in 2015, the then Ministry of Gender, Child and Youth Affairs developed the policy. So a lot of the work went in with that ministry. In 2017, the Ministry of Social Development refined the policy and sent it to Parliament. Parliament then mandated that we hold consultations. The policy itself, the bottom line of the policy is healthy functioning families, and it seeks to provide a framework for parenting to effect that healthy functioning family.
Okay. So you've identified that we have a situation where we have poor parenting practices.
Yes.
How, in terms of these statistics, do we have anything to support that?
There are statistics in the policy itself.
Okay.
Shows some of the problems that we have would be some poor discipline and some abusive discipline practices in parenting. We have situations, we have some vulnerable types of families, in particular teen mothers. We have situations with grandparents who are parenting. We have persons with disabilities who have children, and we have parents of children with disabilities. And these are some of the groups that present some peculiar challenges when it comes to parenting, and the policy addresses that.
Okay, how does the policy, how is it going to be ruled out?
Well, there would be an implementation plan for the policy, and because the family is not something that is just government, there will be other stakeholders that would be involved: civil society, the private sector, and we would all be working together to implement the policy. And we have a framework where a multi-sectoral committee would be set up to monitor the implementation of the policy. That committee would design indicators and monitor the progress of the policy as we go along.
So we're looking at communities throughout Trinidad and Tobago?
Yes, we want to get into every community and to spread the word about proper parenting practices.
Okay, so you're going to have counselors at community centers, for instance?
We have the National Family Services already in the ministry, and what we intend to do is to have service centers in all communities throughout Trinidad and Tobago, so that persons could access the services that are available. And as I said before, it is not just for government. So there are other civil society organizations and other citizens groups that provide services for families. What we also want to do is to examine the gaps in services and to see if there are any overlaps in the programs that we offer, so that we would streamline the services to parents.
For those who may not be too familiar with the role of the National Family Services, what exactly is its duties or are its roles?
Well, the National Family Services supports families in general, and they provide counseling, they provide interventions in families, and so that persons can access their services in times of grief, in times of family disputes, and so on.
Is it free first of all?
Yes, it's absolutely free.
And it's connected to the Children's Authority?
No, it's there are links, but the National Family Services is part of the Ministry of Social Development and Family Services.
Okay. So the topic here is the National Parenting Policy of Trinidad and Tobago, but does it also seek to address issues that parents, okay, you're not even a parent yet. Are you educating people on parenting,
Right.
proper
Well,
parenting practices?
that is what the policy seeks to do, because persons spend years to prepare themselves for their careers. And when it comes to parenting, there's little that is done. A friend of mine told me when I was going to become a parent that when you become a parent, it changes your life forever. So what we want to do is to have outlets for education of persons who are not yet parents so that they will be better prepared to be parents.
So do you plan on taking it to the schools?
Definitely. That is one of the plans, to have age-appropriate education for various persons, including school children. And we are going to, in terms of the school children, we would want to have age-appropriate sex education because we recognize that teenage pregnancy is a problem. And we would want to present it in such a way that we could prevent teenage pregnancy.
Another issue, and I know this is something that it's optional. This is not mandatory. You're not forced to get to be taught how to become a parent.
No, it's going to be optional. Mm-hmm. It's going to be voluntary, unless there is legislation.
Okay.
It is always going to be voluntary.
So when is the next consultation?
The next consultation would be on Friday, this Friday, the 6th of April, at the Sangre Grande Civic Center from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. Now we're having consultations in the North, the South, Central, and in Tobago. And this is the first one that we're going to have that is open to the public. We started off on the 16th of March with a consultation for government ministries, academia, certain civic society organizations, and we're expanding it now to the general public.
Okay, so with these consultations, you're going to get some feedback.
Yes, and that feedback is going to help us to refine the policy. It's now a green paper, and when we have revised it, it would then be on its way to becoming a white paper.
Okay, so let's look at some of the topics that you see being addressed here. We're talking about child care, children with disabilities, what else?
Yes, some of the things that we want to do too is to address teenage mothers returning to education. And while that is easy to see, there are challenges for teenage mothers who want to return to education. So we would want to have childcare services available so that these mothers could actually go out and engage in education once again. We want to also have some sort of regulation for nurseries so that nurseries would be providing the type of care that parents could be confident to send their children and know that they are getting the best of care at a certain standard for their children.
One of the first things that you spoke to was the issue of discipline. And you also mentioned that a lot of the times you have children or teenagers having children themselves when we may recognize that the parents need discipline themselves.
Yes, well, and these services would be available in terms of educating parents when there's need for certain interventions to assist them in the challenges that they may face.
Okay, and how can people get more information?
The policy is actually on the ministry's website. The website is www.social.gov.tt, and they can make their contributions to the policy. We know that we can't reach everybody in the country. They may not be able to come out to the consultations. but they can send in their comments to our email address, which is npp@social.gov.tt.
Okay. My final question to you, as we mentioned earlier, that this is going to be, well, plans are in place, I'm thinking, to introduce this to the possibly secondary school level. How soon can we expect to see something?
Well, first of all, we have to complete the review of the policy, and the program would be rolled out eventually. We hope to complete all our consultations by the end of April, and hopefully we'd have the policy prepared, the final draft of the policy in May, so that thereafter we would seek to have the implementation plan. In terms of a time frame, I can't say that with certainty at this moment.
Okay, great. Your closing comments, what would you like to say to those looking on?
Well, I want the national public to know that we are having these consultations throughout Trinidad and Tobago. Look out in the press, check our website, and to remind them that the first consultation is this Friday, the 6th of April, at the Sangre Grande Civic Center. Following that, we'd have on the 12th at the Valsayn Teachers College, UTT North Campus. On the 17th of April, we would be at the National Energy Skills Center in Couva, and they could look out for the dates and venues for South and for Tobago.
And a very important question though, parents with children who have disabilities, how different would the approach be?
Well, parents with children with disability have a lifelong, it's a lifelong commitment to their children. And the approach would be in such a way that support would be given to them. There are avenues for support at present, and we would want to strengthen those and probably come up with some new ways of treating with parents with children with disabilities.
Well, we definitely look forward to this. Very, very important. We've been chatting with Michael Reed. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us this morning. He is the Acting Director of Social Planning and Research at the Ministry of Social Development and Family Services.